Betty Meredith, President of the International Retirement Resource Center, and I'm happy to be your session host today for How Much Can I Spend in Retirement? A guide to investment-based retirement income strategies with Wade Pfau, PhD, CFA, Professor of Retirement Income at the American College, and Principal and Director at McLean Asset Management, and a Chief Planning Strategist at InStream Solutions. What a client spends is the foundation of any retirement plan. Today's clients are responsible not only for figuring out how much to save during their retirement years or during their working years, but also converting their savings into sustainable income that covers their spending for an unknown number of retirement years. We know that the nature of risk changes in retirement, therefore exposing their lifestyle to the impacts of market volatility, unknown longevity, and spending shocks. But the estimates today provided by traditional studies of what sustainable spending rate might be in light of these risks can be too optimistic, and it's important for advisors to understand a variety of spending and asset allocation approaches in order to manage a sequence of returns and other risks, and to develop a sustainable spending strategy from an investment portfolio. Wade Pfau, PhD, CFA, is a professor of retirement income in the PhD program for the Financial and Retirement Planning at American College. He holds a doctorate in economics from Princeton and is interested in conducting research that helps to develop better tools for retirement planning. Wade also serves as principal and director for McLean Asset Management that helps to build retirement income solutions for their clients. And he's also chief planning strategist of a financial planning software provider, InStream Solutions, of which, by the way, they incorporate a lot of the principles that Wade will be talking about today. Wade publishes frequently in a wide variety of leading academic and practitioner research journals on the topics related to retirement income. He hosts the Retirement Researcher website, is a contributor to Forbes, and is an expert panelist for the Wall Street Journal. And his research has been discussed in outlets including the print versions of The Economist, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Money Magazine, and others. Wade is a two-time author. His first book was Reverse Mortgages, How to Use Reverse Mortgages to Secure Your Retirement, about which he did a webinar for us last year. And then this book that he'll be talking about today on how much you can spend in retirement, investment-based retirement income strategies. So Wade, welcome to the program, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Betty, and thank you to the IRRC for organizing today's event, and thanks everyone for attending. It's my pleasure to spend some time talking about retirement income, focusing specifically today on the investment side. I do talk about how there's two schools of thought regarding retirement that I call probability-based and safety first, that really approach retirement from a fundamentally different way. And today's presentation will focus on the probability-based side, the idea of using an investment portfolio to manage retirement risk. Learning objectives for the CE credit today include looking at the different retirement income tools, philosophies, and strategies, looking at how much you can sustainably spend from an investment portfolio and how that can respond to portfolio performance. And that's really going to be where we'll spend a significant amount of time today talking about variable or dynamic spending strategies. That relates as well to appropriate spending patterns for retirees and how those different types of variable spending strategies impact spending patterns, and then talk a bit about actually developing a sustainable spending strategy for retirement. So the contents from today's webinar are indeed all included in my book, How Much Can I Spend in Retirement, which you can find at Amazon, and if that link is too much to get written down, if you just search for my name at Amazon or the book title, it will be very easy to find. So retirement is different, and that's really the first step of understanding that the investment approach, the strategy to use post-retirement, a lot changes, and we have to consider the impact. What's really different about retirement is that retirees have less risk capacity. Their lifestyle becomes more vulnerable to downturns in financial markets. Prior to retirement, it's not necessarily easy to see the market go down and to recover from that, but it's easier than it is post-retirement. Retirees have less risk capacity. Their lifestyle becomes more vulnerable to downturns in financial markets, and that has to be assessed. 7 reasons really why that's the case include reduced earnings capacity. Once somebody leaves the labor force, they're no longer funding their lifestyle from salary. They have to fund their lifestyle from the asset base they've accumulated. That leads to point number 2, the visible spending constraint. Pre-retirement, investment managers often think about just wealth management, trying to maximize wealth or trying to maximize risk-adjusted returns using tools like modern portfolio theory about building efficient multi-asset class diversified investment portfolios. But that doesn't really consider the liability that retirees face. Retirement is an asset liability problem. How do you sustain spending from an asset base? Modern portfolio theory and traditional investment management is an assets-only model. How do you choose an asset allocation? Implicitly, the assumption is there's no need to spend. If you have to take distributions from assets, it's a fundamentally different problem than modern portfolio theory seeks to address, and that the traditional investment manager has really had their focus. That spending constraint is particularly important because it leads to point number 3. It's going to heighten and amplify the impact of investment volatility on a retirement income plan. This is more commonly known as sequence of returns risk. It's the idea that it's not just the average market return over a long retirement that will drive the retirement outcome, but rather the specific order that those returns come. And I'll talk about this in more detail shortly. But for now, the basic intuition is, in the investment world, there's this idea of stocks for the long run, the idea that if you hold on to stocks for long enough, the ups and downs in the market will average out, and you can be more assured of earning an equity premium, of having stock market outperformance relative to bonds. Well, with sequence risk, retirement outcomes are going to be driven by a shorter period of returns in the early retirement. Even with a 30-year retirement, the first 10 years are really going to drive a big part of that outcome. And over shorter periods of time, there's more volatility. So retirees become more exposed. Other factors here include unknown longevity, not knowing how long the financial plan needs to last, spending shocks, things outside of the baseline retirement budget that may or may not happen, probabilistic in nature, but that require some liquidity to help fund, having assets that are not earmarked for other purposes. Because again, retirement is an asset liability matching problem. And if I earmark a pool of assets to cover my spending, my budget, my retirement budget, then I can't use those same assets to cover spending shocks. These need other assets outside of what's already been earmarked for meeting my basic budget. Compounding inflation is another risk. Even a low, stable inflation rate does accumulate over a long retirement period. And then declining cognitive abilities, especially as clients age into their 80s and 90s, it becomes increasingly difficult to manage an investment portfolio and rebalance and stay the course in the face of a downturn. And so it helps to have plans in place that don't require complex decision-making late in life.